And of the 28, 27 of you said no, you are not upset that the police killed the 4 assailants in the Pennywise robbery. One person said yes, he is upset. They should have been apprehended and brought to justice, or visionable. So 27 people said no, one person said yes. So 28 people have voted in the allotted time, and our poll this morning, which continues throughout the day and into tomorrow, when we'll give you the final results tomorrow, Friday. So are you upset that the police killed the 4 assailants in the Pennywise robbery? So we'll give you the final results for that poll tomorrow morning, Friday.
Yes.
Some exciting news concerning greedy people. Of course, we had a little competition on our social media yesterday on our Facebook page, RSRR Productions, which has over 16,000 people on that page. So we had a competition giving away 2 tickets there. And we also have a WhatsApp, a group with hundreds and hundreds of people. There was also a competition there. And both groups have been told that the results will be given in the 8 to 9 hour on Power 102 FM Digital. So between 8 and 9, I will give the results of who the winners are on those respective platforms. And just in case you didn't know, Greedy People is on next weekend, October 1st and 2nd at Cipriani College in Valsay.
No shame.
So you're going to get 5,000 more viewers in this 8 to 9 hour.
So, probably thousands, because we have over 16,000 people. And it was a healthy the question, but I'll give you the question in 8 to 9 and who were the first people to come up with the right answer. But a lot of people took part in it in terms of trying to win those 2 tickets for Greedy People.
Going back to that poll question this morning, you know, what is interesting about this? That normally, and it just goes to show, and this is for the police in particular, the police leadership. When there's a police involved killing, there's a lot of remonstration in the public domain, not so?
Mm-hmm.
This time, no. It all depends on the circumstance.
We hear no tires burning.
No, but I think it's also how it played out visibly.
Because of the circumstance.
Because of the circumstance. But
and then there was video footage, you're right.
Yes,
you're right.
There was video footage. So the citizens were following it.
So there was no doubt about how it unfolded.
They could see how it happened. And in addition to which, remember...
I mean, we don't know what happened under the house, to be very honest. But the Pennywise side was so profound.
Yeah.
And how brutal that was.
Yeah. And the Commissioner of Police did indicate that there was body cam footage too.
Where, under the house or in the Pennywise?
But he said that the officers were using body cams. So I assume for the entire incident, there will be body cam footage.
Well, yeah, because the same officers hopefully the same officers involved. You're not sure.
But interestingly, and while we wait to talk to our guest,
I need to take a quick break too.
There is an article today in one of the dailies that indicates that the street value of firearms have gone up. That AK-47s are now $40,000 to $40,000, while an AR-15 is now $45,000. Handheld guns have also risen, and the street value for Glocks stood between $18,000 and $20,000, while revolvers were between $10,000 and $12,000. What the police, this is from the TTPS, and they're also saying that some of these firearms are being rented. They have started, and they have, to this end, 24 police officers have recently been trained by American specialists to track firearms and how they are imported. The goal is no longer just taking guns off the streets, but taking the key players who import these weapons off the board. So it's finding linkages between the weapons and who imports them is key. So the linkages by utilizing technology and DNA evidence are important. And this is what we've had investigators recently trained in. So the aim is to make a positive dent in these operations and hope that they will impact with a reduction of homicides, because about 80% of all murders are committed via the use of firearms.
True. Well, yeah.
All right.
So,
well, Dr. Hosein is logging on. I am going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Every Sunday, enjoy brunch at the Cascadia Hotel for an introductory price of only $99. Brunch time runs from 10:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Kids 5 and under, accompanied by an adult, eat for free. So bring the entire family and enjoy in this delicious feast every Sunday at the Cascadia Hotel. Don't miss out. Call 235-4554 and make your reservation now. Brunch at the Cascadia Hotel for an introductory price of only $99. Special conditions apply.
The Diamond Jubilee Calypso Monarch. Our 60th Independence celebrations continue with the Diamond Jubilee Calypso Monarch competition. Come out and see TNT's Calypso Heavyweights vie for the grand prize of $200,000. Look out for the finals on September 25th at the Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah. Who will take the crown of the Diamond Jubilee Calypso Monarch? For more info, contact the Tuco head office at 623-9660 or follow us at Forging Forward TT on Facebook and Instagram. The Diamond Jubilee Calypso Monarch.
All right, that's happening. And it's on this Sunday, September 25th.
Recording in progress.
At the Queen Spark Savannah. All right, don't you miss it. It should be an interesting program. All right, it's our 60th Independence. The Diamond Jubilee Calypso Monarch continue with the Calypso Monarch competition. Come on and see TNT's Calypso Heavyweights vie for the grand prize of $200,000. Look out for the finals. It's on, as I said, this Sunday, 25th at the Queen's Park, Savannah. Showtime is going to be at 5 p.m. and the list of finalists are Aaron Duncan, Trinity, Ryan London, Dwayne O'Connor, Eunice Peters, Sneaky, Kareen Ashe, King Luther, and Tamika Darius. Queen Victoria, that is as well. Tickets are only $60 and are available at the Queen's Park Savannah's box office and the Tuco's head office. Who will take the crown of the Diamond Calypso Jubilee Monarch? For further info, you can contact the Tuco at 623-9660 or you can follow on Facebook and on Instagram at Forging Forward TT. All right. So our guest is online. And with us this morning is Dr. Roger Hosein. And we say good morning to you, Roger. How are you? Oh, there he is, right. Yeah, morning, Roger.
Is your friend.
Morning.
How are you?
Good, man. Fine, thanks.
All right, welcome to the Paul Breakfast Show. It's been a while. Paul Richards and Richard Ragoobarsingh is with us this morning.
Yes,
Morning, Dr. Hosein.
Paul, how are you going?
I'm all right. How are you going?
Good enough. In a pandemic.
Good enough.
In a depressed economy.
Well, that's a
Morning,
good
Dr.
place to start.
Hosein.
Since you said of the bad, it's a depressed. What is a depressed economy? Let's get a sense of where you think we are presently.
Okay, so just confirming we are on air now, right?
Yep.
All right.
Streaming.
And on YouTube.
So where are we? Well, to me, from my understanding of the facts, we are in a worrying position. We have just experienced the 6th consecutive year of decline, and we need to turn the economy around. We need to get production restarted. Now, the boost in energy revenues, I am hoping would be used to create some injections that could trigger non-energy exports to increase so that the stock of exchange could benefit, and also that could ease some stresses for the population, because there's a lot of tension in the economy as manifested in various ways. But one of the variables that I am looking at present is the murder level, and that just seems to be climbing. I did a linear projection sometime in the last 2 weeks, and it reached the expectation it would reach somewhere close to 590 for 2022, which would post it at the highest ever since 1956 if it were to occur. And so there is a heaviness in the macroeconomy that this particular budget has to help ease, has to address so that people would be able to continue in the running of their daily affairs, but a little lighter. I don't envy the Minister of Finance. It's a heavy job on his hands because several things happened one after the other. In 2016, oil prices fell. Then you had the coronavirus. But on top of that, the volatility works in both directions. We then had the Russia-Ukraine war, and now we are benefiting from substantially elevated oil prices and gas prices, say as compared to 2016 or 2020. So there's a lot of work to be done, Paul. There's a lot of work to be done.
What are your thoughts, going back to the spotlight on the economy, which happened, I think, 2 weeks ago? What are your thoughts? Because we'll deal with the energy, the commodity price advantage that we're experiencing now. What are your thoughts on the country's expenditure profile? Because the finance minister spoke a lot about the expenditure profile and even projected into the possibility of increasing that given the negotiations that are ongoing, and also this country's debt profile.
I personally was a little disappointed at the spotlight of the economy. I mean, I listened attentively, and I also read the minister's PowerPoint. I read the online notes from the permanent secretary. I read the notes of Dr. Dorian Noel. I read the notes of I didn't read the notes of Dave Siratan, but I read the others. And I thought the Minister of Finance and others involved could have been more frank with the population and let them know that we were in a depression. Instead, I got the perspective coming out of the spotlight, that there was strong growth in some areas and whatnot. And I looked at the numbers from the CSO. I looked at real GDP data from the CSO. In fact, I think the very next day, or within a 1 week period of the spotlight, the CSO provided data that confirmed that real GDP will contract in 2021, and that for the first quarter of 2022, real GDP was projected to contract by -4%. So I think if I have a problem with you, Paul, I would come to you and say, Paul, here's what's going on. You didn't pass that ball clear to me. Next time, take your time. 2, are we going to try and score? Give me the ball closer to my foot. Let me receive the ball in a good organized way. And then I would...
That analogy is devoid of political expediency. You're talking about a Minister of Finance who's representing a government who, I'm presuming, in their mind, has to, 1, present a reality check, but 2, what I got is that we managed the economy under the difficult circumstances properly, because there's a political element to that too.
I hear you. And I could only come here to you and be direct and tell you what my...
I ain't saying what he do is right, I'm saying what is the reality of his situation. He can't come and say we dropped the ball.
No, and again, I hear you. I acknowledge what you say. But if you pass the ball to me, to use an analogy that most people may understand, and you put it too wide for me and I cannot reach it, although it may sound that, okay, Paul Richards passes the ball to Hosein, I don't get the ball. So of what practical relevance is that? It has to make sense in the context of the scenario. So whilst I take the point that you did pass the ball, I am saying for me to receive the ball has to come within a certain distance of me in order for me to make intelligent use of it. That's the way I see it.
So in terms of the budget presentation that will take place on Monday, what areas do you think that the Minister of Finance should concentrate on to transform the economy and to get it more productive, as you intimated at the start of this conversation?
Thanks, Richard. So I do some small scale investment, and what the country needs is the small scale investors and the big scale investors to invest more so we could employ more people, we could keep prices down, and we could help generate more revenues. Then my biggest fear or concern in this country, and I'm not going to say something economics, is the murder level. Unless I feel comfortable, Richard, unless I feel like I can move about and open a shop, say on High Street or wherever, and be able to sell my goods and services free from fear and free and fair, then I would switch money away from certain type of investments, and I would put it in real estate, and I would put it in other areas that nobody would really know. But what it would cause a skewed investment pattern in the economy that does not boost non-energy exports. So to specifically answer your question, an important part of moving the economy forward, in my understanding of the facts, is to address that murder level so that business people would feel increasingly comfortable to invest in things that could increase non-energy exports.
While you're talking about investment, what is your assessment of the impact, the present impact on the crime situation on the domestic economy? Because it must be they have to increase the security cost. They may want to expand and may not think it's a feasible time to do so because of the psychological impact of crime on the spending population, etc.
So, to me, the impact of crime is glaring. If it is you are a small, medium business person and you have to spend money to get a security to stand up by the door. Every time your children pass, you are worried, oh my God, they are going to take my children, they are going to take my children. You have to make sure that the burglar proof is strong. So a lot of money will be diverted from buying more stock, which you could resell to generate income, to employ people, now to preserving the business that you have.
But I'm speaking specifically in relation to, do you think, because I know it's happened to theater with Richard and Day at one stage, do you think it's having an impact on the customer flows into the businesses? Or a significant impact?
Of course. I don't know. I don't have the numbers to say whether or not it's a very significant impact, but people would be more careful about the places that they go. So you would see, for example, some malls being more frequently visited than other places because people are of the perception that those malls have better security. I will not go and eat dinner, Paul, in a place that does not have a security posted at the front door. I won't. So, but yes, in my view, it is having an impact on business, especially. And then there is the third aspect, manufacturing. Sometimes manufacturing runs 3 shifts. And that night shift, I think a lot of businesses have been affected because people are afraid of that night shift and moving about in the night given the crime situation. So the first thing as an economist I have gone to in terms of adjusting economic outcomes is the crime situation. That's my honest view. The second thing, just to make sure I properly answer Richard, Ruben, is that, Ruben, we have seen an economy where transfers and subsidies have eaten up a significant part of government expenditure. And again, if I have a household and I have $100 and my household is growing, one of the things that I would need to do is to put on an additional room rather than just share all the money only to all my kids. Meaning that we need to improve on the distribution of our fiscal expenditures so that we could widen productive space in the economy rather than such a heavy focus, in my judgment, on transfers and subsidies.
But transfers and subsidies, well, the state certainly with regard to fuel has indicated they're going to put a cap in terms of how much they're going to subsidize fuel for. What kind of impact do you think that is going to have? Because you're right, beyond crime, because crime is a big part of the entire mix, you also have that a lot of citizens, a lot of people are still post the effect of COVID. They're still trying to catch themselves from COVID because many people would have had reduced incomes as a result of it. Maybe not all members of the household may have been affected, but some would have been. And so you still have the country coming out of that. And I know in some countries they're saying that you're supposed, prior to the Ukraine war, there was a discussion that there would be a post-pandemic boom. Are we seeing that at all? And is that manifesting at all in Trinidad? Or is it that the Ukraine war and the cost of commodities has kind of dampened that?
That's a very spot-on question, Ruben, and few people.
Why you keep calling him Ruben?
Oh, I thought it was Richard Ruben. Sorry, so Richard. That's a very spot on question. In 2021, I looked at all of the data last night coincidentally for the world. And in 2021, if I remember correctly, Trinidad and Tobago was ranked the 8th worst performing economy in the world. Now, one would expect that coming out of the pandemic, particularly in 2020, that 2021, even though you have the pandemic, still aspects of it, that we would have done much, much better. And what it is saying to me is something is wrong with the structure of production. Something in our structure of production is causing our economy to be strained. Mind you, even if you look at the forecast data for 2025, 26, 27, you see some very bad performances expected of the Trinidad and Tobago economy, so that we need to get the structure of production correct. Coming back though specifically to your comment with relation to the energies, the cap that is going to be placed, I see nothing wrong with that at this point in time. People are under pressure, people are under strain, and if that is one way to help ease the tension or to reduce the burden on the consumer, given the other areas they are already burdened with the escalating food prices and inflation in general, then I think I could see eye to eye with that intervention. So I have no problem with that specific one.
You mentioned just now a report that stated Trinidad and Tobago was the 8th worst performing economy in the world. Expand on that a bit. What report was that, and give us some of the metrics involved in that report, please.
Right. So this wasn't a report. It was it is data that is presented online from the IMF. So it is the IMF data, the IMF actual data provided by the IMF. I'm pulling it up here specifically as I speak to you to give you the exact number in 2021. So in 2021, you see something I checked, it is the 15th worst performing economy in the world in 2021. Now, that's out of 195 countries, Paul. So being ranked the 15th worst in the world when many other countries, you could see all the other countries basically recovered, worries me. What is going on? Something is wrong there. And this is the IMF data. Now, the reason I went to the IMF data is because in November 2021, the IMF provided forecasts that said it would be -1. In the midterm review, I read the comments of the Minister of Finance that were very glowing, that the economy basically was turning around and doing good. And then when the CSO gave the official numbers, Paul, for the 2021 performance, it also turned out to be -1. So which means that the forecasting model of the IMF is good. And therefore, those numbers that I see later on in those same forecasts by the IMF for 2025, 26, and 27 has me very concerned. They gave some very low numbers for the relative growth performance of Trinidad and Tobago in the global economy. And the Minister of Finance and his technical team needs to consider whether this is the time to bring back on stream the Economic Development Advisory Board. I mean, we had a strong participant there, leader there, Terence Farrell, who I think is best in class. And maybe now is the time, given those low numbers, that we could look for. This is parallel support. You know, you have a coach for a football team, you bring on an assistant coach and a deputy coach, and you use all the advice and information to get us to World Cup.
Well, isn't that just it? Dr. Farrell didn't just leave because he's a frivolous person. The impression I got was Dr. Farrell left because the advice he was giving wasn't being taken. So why would he go back into the same scenario?
You know, I am a great fan of Lloyd Best. And one of the things Lloyd Best used to say sometimes is, put on your sackcloth and throw your ashes on and say sorry and let's move forward. My personal view, and others may disagree, is that we don't have a choice. We need the Economic Development Advisory Board because you have had 6 consecutive years of contraction, and the medium term, barring 2022, 23, 24, when you will get a little blip upwards in production of natural gas, is not looking good. So what do you do, Paul? Do you sit back and run the risk that the IMF gets it correct and that the economy goes into this relatively poor performance scenario? Or do you bring on hardcore technical people like Terence, who has this deep-rooted training in economic development that could help change the outcomes. I would eat humble pie and I would bring back Terrence.
I am not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that the dynamic involved in Dr. Farrell's leaving in the first place may still exist. And yes, people should be in a perfect, in a utopian world, say, well, yes, Dr. Hosein is the best, Dr. Farrell is the best, Mr. Ragoobarsingh is the best, let's bring them on. But it may not be aligned with your political agenda.
Fair enough, but this is not a time, given that the economy is now operating at about 16% smaller GDP than in 2015, to be dealing with that type of nonsense. In 2025, you can deal with your political business. Right now, we should save Trinidad and Tobago economy, in my view, and I would have brought on a parallel team of real top-level thinkers from an economic development perspective, because what we have isn't giving us the real GDP growth we want. That's my blunt view. And so I would have gone to him and say, listen, I made a mistake. I want you to come and pick 4 other people of equivalent caliber, and can you all provide us with parallel information? We will treat you all well. We will listen to you all. But this is the position that we find ourselves in.
But do you, I hear you, but do you think practically that is going to happen? You live here, you live in this space. Do you think that that's likely to happen?
You know, honestly, I think it is a possibility. I think it is a possibility because we now have the benefit of hindsight. We now know, using the data from the CSO. Well, I am using here the data presented by the Minister of Finance at the spotlight. So I'm using the minister's data, where he had a graph showing all the good performances. Post 2015, I believe, was less than 0%. And the 2021 data provided by the CSO that gives us 6 consecutive years of decline. I think that in the context of that it is possible that the powers that be, the Prime Minister, it is possible, would say, okay, listen, 6 years of decline is enough. I have had enough. I am bringing Terrence back, and you all have to work with it. I don't see why he can't do that. I honestly don't see, Ruben. So you asked me, and I am telling you my honest view.
Yes, Ruben. What do you think about present expenditure profile? Richard spoke about the subsidies and transfer a while ago. And the conflict with labor on that, adding the component of productivity. It seems that, for example, we're experiencing the advantage of having high commodity energy prices now, but natural gas production is low. We have a productivity problem in Trinidad and Tobago that does not make us competitive in many different spheres. So,
Paul, if you continue to speak like that, you won't need me, because everything you said there, I agree with. We definitely have a substantial part of the problem is our competitiveness. And the way we are trying to deal with it is by controlling inflation rather than working through the Venezuelan immigrants or working through a direct devaluation. We are attempting a strategy of internal devaluation, whether or not we call it that, rather than an external devaluation. And I have no problem with that, except that between 2015 and 2021, our real effective exchange rate, which is how we could look at the external competitiveness of the economy, improved by 4.5%. But even though it improved, the ratio of the production of non-energy, non-tradables to non-energy tradables increased. In other words, the intervention of the internal devaluation, Paul, did not bring the economy to a point of producing more non-energy tradable goods in comparison to non-energy, non-tradable goods. And therefore, we need to look at the strategy of how we are managing the external competitiveness of the economy closer. Now, bringing this to the labor sector. In the labor market, we have seen an almost continuous decline in the labor force participation rate since 2003. In fact, we have one of the lowest labor force participation rate in the entire Caribbean. I think only Guyana and Haiti is below Trinidad and Tobago. We are at about 56% of the non-institutionalized population enters the labor force, whereas in the Bahamas, it is about 73%. So it's almost 20 percentage points more. We need to, the Minister of Labor needs to take a deep dive look at why it is people are leaving the labor force. Is it to join gangs? Is it they are fed up of the labor market and the wages are too low? Is it that they are dissatisfied with working conditions? What is going on with the labor force participation rate and how can we fix it? And we have been calling for that a little while now.
There are some who suggest that there has been some sort of significant human resource / brain drain in the country in the last 2 years. Have you had any data on that? Because some of the other indices may be correlating with that.
No, it's really difficult to collect immigration data like that. What I have found is that a few students, I can only use the examples that I know, a few students that I know, they left and they are not coming back. I know 2 or 3 families that have also decided to go to Canada, but I have no serious data beyond those simple data points I mentioned. What I would say to you is that a high crime, a high murder level, and a low economic performance are the type of things that would drive people abroad. So, but I don't have data to back that up, so I can't say anything beyond that.
What about our present debt profile, debt to GDP level? I think the last time the minister said it was improving, it had come from 79 to 77% or something like that. I could be quoting the wrong numbers, but some were suggesting it was over 90%. But he gave some information at the spotlight presentation that it was not there, that it was improving.
Now, to the best of my recollection, I think the debt to GDP ratio is about 86%. And now, once energy prices increase and inflation increases, the GDP in the economy in nominal terms would look like it's getting bigger and bigger, so that the debt to GDP ratio would fall. So that's almost like a mirage. And we need to take that ratio, therefore, with a pinch of salt. And I would wait until Monday to find out exactly what numbers the minister is quoting. But from my understanding of the data, Paul, it's about 86% or thereabouts.
He's clearly signaling. Go ahead, Richard.
No, I was going to ask, what do you think are the bright spots in the economy, if any?
There are some bright spots. One of the things I would like to do is to compliment the TTME and the Minister of Trade for the performance of the manufacturing sector, and I'm talking about the non-energy manufacturing sector in recent times. She has been putting in a lot of work. The CEO of the TTMA is now Ramesh Ramdeen. And these people have been putting in a lot of work, and I commend them for that. And if you look at the data, and I know this data, you are seeing a transformation of manufacturing sector activity, and you are even seeing an increase in non-energy exports, both to the Caribbean and beyond the Caribbean. And I think now, whilst it's a far cry away, Richard, from what we need to transform the economy in terms of non-energy exports, being able to pay for imports, it's still a bright spot. You are seeing improvements there, and I give them due credit, and I encourage them to continue to be the iron while the iron is hot for the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago economy.
How important is digitization of the economy in terms of the overall picture?
Well, I think that's tremendously important, and I know and many things with digitization you could decrease the cost of production, so that all efforts in that direction, is something that we should support and something we should encourage, because it helps to reduce friction, it helps to reduce the cost of production, it helps to reduce the demand for labor, in part because we already have a labor force that is on the decline. We already have a labor force participation rate that is depressed, and we already have an out of the labor force group that is on the rise. So digitization to me is very important and has a role in helping to transform the Trinidad and Tobago economy.
It would be remiss of us not to have you and not talk about food production, food security, and agriculture. I know you've been the champion of this for a while, not only because of the farming situation, but because of the, I'm sure it's almost $6 billion. We keep saying 5 for a while, but, you know, given the increase, the inflation in food prices globally, it could be as much as $6 billion now. We don't know. We don't have the data to make a definitive statement on that. But we've heard a lot of talk about agriculture. A lot of talk. We've seen recent overtures by the government, positive overtures to me, to reach out to the Ghanaian government. We're seeing regional leaders talking about food security. What do you think there should be in the budget? Because they've had incentive clauses in the budget before to try and incentivize farming, which has not worked because we have land tenure issues, we have pre-elastic issues, we have accessibility to funding issues, we have whether or not we're producing the right, using the technology to maximize yield issues.
So Paul, again, I am listening to you and I'm thinking you could just come and talk. You do this well.
You know what? Let me tell you what's interesting about this.
Yeah.
I've been broadcasting for over 30 years and the conversations are the same.
Right. So you know it.
So it's not even that I know. Yeah. It's almost like a poem.
Right.
And that's the sad thing about it. The conversations I've been having in media and radio and television are so much the same in the last 15, 20 years.
Which is sad in the sense that it means that the problems are not going away. And therefore, in that context, we need to put in some more work. Now, as I'm speaking to you here, I have pulled up this CSO data and I'm looking at the output for 2021 in the agricultural, forestry and fishing sector, which is 938 million as compared to 1,124 million in 2020. In other words, despite all the efforts, we had just about a 200 million decline in the output of the agricultural sector between 2020 and 2021. So, Paul, clearly all those things that we are doing are not working. And what we may need to do is stakeholder consultation. We may need to go back to the people, the farmers in particular, and ask, how can we increase economic activity in the farming sector, and hear from the horse's mouth the interventions that could be made. But parallel to that, and I say this because I'm heavily involved in a group called the Shaw Foundation that has been going around Trinidad and Tobago sharing out seedlings, and they didn't pay me to say this. We have given out 2 million seedlings to date throughout various parts of Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the things I think that may have some merit is we encourage bottom-up agriculture. We go to the level of the households and we partner with the households and get the households to do more planting so that, you know, you have a little more celery and saive and bandania in your backyard and baji. And so you transform agriculture both from the lowest level and the medium level and at the higher level. And yes, much more work needs to be done. You could recite some of the problems like a poem, but we have to be able to stop that poem and adjust the problems.
What will it take? I just get so frustrated with what seem to be achievable objectives that seem to fall at the wayside at for political expediency. And I'm not talking about this government, I'm talking about the last government too. A lot of work done, then a lot of backward movement, and we don't seem to be able to sustain the kind of thrust we see. We need, particularly with agriculture in the Caribbean with so much arable land. Roger, for long his screen froze.
Richard, are you hearing Paul?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yeah, we heard him. Yeah. Paul, you need to repeat it.
Yeah, I said, you hearing me?
I lost you for about 35 seconds.
Yeah, I was saying, what will it take for us to actually make some sustainable progress in agriculture? It's not that the answers are so out of reach. It's not that the answers are so novel. It's happening in so many other jurisdictions successfully. What is it really past the political will at this point?
So here's what I would suggest to you, Paul. I remember in 2012, 13, 14, around there, Vasanbara did an exercise that to me made good statistical economic sense. He looked at our imports of various agricultural food, and I'm going to call some here that may or may not have been on the list. Cassava, pumpkin, baji, tomatoes. And he looked at our domestic production of those commodities that we imported, and he had an idea of the import gap. And he then put in place mechanisms to improve on the production of those commodities that we imported in the agricultural sector. So he increased production and he saved on foreign exchange. And to me, that's a simple, basic strategy that I think we could revisit.
What are your thoughts on Tobago?
That's a lot of work. And I just wish they would find the politicians, and I am not a political expert, I'm saying this as a citizen. The two leading figures could find a way to sit down and talk over a cup of coffee, because Trinidad and Tobago needs a Tobago that is strong and that is vibrant. And what I am seeing, to me as a citizen and somebody who loves Tobago and loves my country, it is not healthy, and more could be achieved if they cooperate. Now, in terms of the economics, Tobago is a gold mine in my view. I think Tobago could benefit. You know, in Grenada, I remember reading somewhere that St. George's University in any one day, in any $1 produce, generates about 25 cents. And why can't we do the same for Tobago? Why can't we have 3 offshore universities in different parts of Tobago where people come and study, and that helps to invigorate the Tobago economy, and by extension the Trinidad and Tobago economy, for the benefit of all. And why can't we look in that direction? Why can't we have 2 world-class medical facilities to deal with dialysis, where people could get sun, and see after, and
why would we do that in Tobago when Trinidad already has about 6 universities and a medical faculty here and a law faculty here? Shouldn't Tobago be looking in other areas as opposed to looking to compete with Trinidad in that regard?
Well, this is the cater for offshore students. So after a point in time when our university is full, and we have a very vibrant, dynamic university, but I'm talking about an offshore university catering specifically to nurses and to doctors, in which the developed world is hungry, and given the aging population in the developed world, which may have prospects and benefits for the Tobago sub-economy, because it's an opportunity there. And if it is the education aspect specifically is not appealing, there are other niches, for example, like medical tourism, for something probably on dialysis, and different little areas that you could go into and help boost Tobago. But it was ranked #1 recently by the National Geographic as the #1 ecotourism destination in the world, if I remember correctly. How do you sell that? Why do you have those type of statistics and not generate some significant US dollars from that? That's what I think is worrying. We should be finding out, let's say National Geographic identified, Paul, top 10 things that made Tobago the #1 ecotourism destination in the world. We should be selling those things like
to be fair, I will tell you that I've been seeing, excuse me, a lot better, and people will be surprised, a lot better digital marketing of Tobago's products on social media in the last 6 months to a year. I have been seeing it pops up. I see the posters, I see the ecotourism posters, I see the culinary posters, I see the flora and fauna posters, I see the festival posters. I've seen them on several different platforms regularly, and you can see it is a focused, designed campaign. I don't know whether it's bearing fruit, but I actually see it. I think the hashtag is Go Tobago or something like that. But it's a very focused, sustained campaign. So I don't know if it's the Ministry of Tourism here or Tobago Tourism or a combination of both, but I do see it, to be fair.
You know, whatever takes us across the finish line, I am happy to support. The way I would approach it is, let's say you want a doubling of tourists from, not from Trinidad, but from the rest of the world into Tobago by 2025. I will start from this doubling of the number of tourists, and I would work to the present, and I would put in place those mechanisms. Now, there are others who know much more about me than this topic. All I would say is I would flag that #1 ranking from the National Geographic Society and make that work for my benefit, because an independent, authentic source gave me this ranking.
Just before we close, we invest a lot of money. We have invested billions of dollars in training people at the tertiary level in this country in several different disciplines. Do we have anything to show for it?
Well, we have a society in which you have a reasonable output of people with tertiary level education. Whether or not we could get more from that cadre of tertiary level education skills, I would say yes. I would say any country with a high output level of tertiary level education graduates would always be expecting more. But this is where the challenge arises. If it is you have an economy that is on the decline, then if you look at the tertiary level education unemployment rate and numbers, Paul, that I know that I looked at these numbers in the past, it is on the rise. And what would those unemployed university graduates do? You are not going to spend money on tertiary level education and then sit down here and warm seat. People would migrate. They would go elsewhere. They would look for greener pastures. And so it is extremely important that we find means to create sustainable long-term jobs, decent jobs that could keep our brightest people here, because every graduate that leaves Trinidad and Tobago is a loss of human capital. It's a chunk of money that makes the economy poorer.
I fully agree. That's why I asked the question. Dr. Hosein, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Looking forward to talking to you next week after the budget. That's right.
No problem. Let Steve book me early and I will tell him.
I do get too excited with the budget presentations anymore, quite frankly.
Same here. In fact, I don't even listen to the budget. I just read it after.
To me, that could be half an hour.
Yeah, I don't even listen to the budget speech. I sit down at my own convenience and I read it and I take my time and go through it. But I'm hopeful.
Do you think they should just put it online and leave it like that?
No, I think the ceremony and the presentation is necessary. We have a tradition. But in order to appreciate it, I sit quietly sometime in the night, I read it. I don't have time to sit down and wait 3 hours to hear. And then I can't
the gas going up, subsidy going down.
I don't like the political crosstalk at all. It wastes my time. So I just read it in the night.
Agreed.
Okay. You all thanks very
much
for the opportunity
thank you so much,
to speak and take care. Okay.
All right.
All right. No
Recording stopped.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roger Hosein. All right, let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. It's all powered by Champlain Auto Services.
This